Hello everyone, and hello Jessica. How are you doing? I believe you're muted. You might want to unmute. There we
I'm
go.
good.
Great, great. Well, nice to. Where are you calling in? Where are you dialing in from again?
I am in Denver.
Denver. So yeah, Denver,
Yeah.
and I'm in Scotland. So the miracles of technology and Zoom at work. So welcome everyone to this webinar. This is a short webinar on Skoog, this thing here, which we'll talk about in a minute, with specific kind of looking at ideas of really simple ways that it can engage kids in doing music in the classroom. Really important to note, sort of straight up, that this doesn't require any musical training or knowledge on behalf of you as the teacher or the parent, or on the user or the child or the group. It's something that you can get stuck into just without any kind of previous training or knowledge. But if you do have some music skills, some chops, and you know your way around Garageband, then there's loads of stuff you can do there. So, as I said, I'm Dr. Ben Schogler. I'm a developmental psychologist, and I'm one of the founders of Skoog. And this is Jessica Kellem. She's a teacher, an AT specialist, and maybe introduce yourself, Jessica. Give it a little say hello.
Yes, yeah. Thanks, Ben. I am absolutely not a musician by trade. In fact, I've had some pretty negative experiences with music in my life, but I've been really fortunate to use Skoog in some of the programs that I work with here in the greater Denver area, and it's extremely incredible tool that has been really successful for a lot of my students. So I'm excited to share about that.
Great, yeah. So if you haven't seen that, this is a Skoog here. It's this squishy. Look how soft and squishy it is. A little bit of tech. A little. So it's something that is actually used by Apple in all of their retail stores to offer part of their field trips to offer accessible music workshops, which is great. And that's Apple use that in every store in the world. So that's a pretty good idea. So we're gonna have a look at some different ways that we can use Skoog. But first, maybe get an idea of who's online in the chat. If you can just let us know, maybe if you're a special ed teacher or a speech and language therapist, or maybe a parent, or and also kind of maybe what range of ages and who what your students' kind of range of abilities are. I mean, having worked in this area for a while, it's usually evident that they have to deal with a huge range of abilities. And I think that's another thing that we'll hopefully illustrate now, in that a preschool special ed. Yeah. So I think the thing that's really we found really important over the last kind of 10, 15 years developing Skoog is that there's such a range of abilities and interests in classes that it really needs to be able to work on a lot of different levels. So we've got K5 elementary music teacher. Oh, great. We've got some music teachers involved as well. So that's good. So let's get started. So Skoog was specifically created for individuals with disabilities to try and create an instrument that could be used by someone with either physical, learning, or sensory challenges. It's designed for play. It's robust, and it's sensitive all over. It can be customized in a variety of ways, and it works by connecting via Bluetooth to an app that is free when you buy the Skoog. And we've got some band directors on as well, and some autism specialists. That's great. So hopefully we'll get a chance to look at some of the Garageband stuff as well for some of the more music specialists. But we're going to try and just look at this idea of trying to think about music slightly differently. So for a lot of people over the years as well, we found that a lot of people are keen to get more music and engagement happening in a classroom environment. But if you don't have a musical background yourself, that can be quite daunting and quite difficult. In the similar ways, if you don't know how to play an instrument, that's quite difficult. So that's really where we focus with Skoog in terms of getting started. And so also, if you've got any questions, please do just pop them into the chat, and we can crack on. And I suppose, Jessica, have you got any little quick stories of little examples of your experiences with Skoog?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of positive experiences with music growing up, but I was able to pick this up after meeting you, Ben, and play an entire song after messing around with it for an hour. So it's extremely user-friendly. I work with lots of students who have low incidence disabilities, including autism, mostly nonverbal kids. And this is so intuitive. I've had students just pick it up and play a song right out of the songbook immediately.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite videos that you can see on our YouTube channel is from a young lady who's now one of our top Skoogists. She's a singer and songwriter with autism, and I met her in the early days of doing Skoog at a trade show, and she played a song. She played a song by Journey. Straight
Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah, Don't Stop Believing. It's a classic. Can't believe I forgot that. And she played it from start to finish without missing a beat, and just sort of how intuitive it is, which is great. So this is Skoog. It's Bluetooth. It connects to an iPad using an app. And if there's no more questions, let's have a look at what we're going to do next. So I want to sort of frame this little webinar, and it's something that I've been playing around with, the idea of thinking about music in the same way you think about art, and using it as a bit of a different way of looking at it. Because with art, we're totally happy to let kids loose on a piece of paper and just do finger painting, or we can just get them to do coloring in or painting by numbers, and that seems a really safe kind of space to play in. Getting a big sheet of paper out, getting the color out, and doing these kind of things. And I think actually Skoog, you can think of Skoog as doing music in a similar way to get started, where it can be as easy and as kind of accessible as finger painting, if you like. So let's get started. So this is Skoog, connects to this app via Bluetooth. Now I'm just going to share the iPad screen now. So I'm going to just do a quick screen share so you can see what's happening in the app. Let's see if I can manage that. Screen share. Let's do, there we go. Sure. So hopefully now you can see a little thing on my screen. So here you can see if I press the yellow, I get color feedback. Now Skoog has a different color on each side of this cube, and you choose it to be an instrument, and then it puts a different note on each side. Now don't worry if you don't know, what notes do you play and stuff, because what Skoog is at its heart is essentially what's called a pentatonic instrument, which means it has 5 notes at a time, and it sets these scales automatically. And so if you're thinking about finger painting, I can choose, I don't even know what it is, I can choose any scale in here, and if you listen, all the notes sound like they fit together. I can just play around with that and it will work, because with the pentatonic tunings, all of these scales will just happily work together. Now we can use that and exploit that in different ways to do these other kind of tasks, but this is kind of like scribbling with sound, and really anyone can do it. The great thing with Skoog is you don't have to be accurate when you're touching it. Don't have to hit the buttons. We can touch it anywhere on any surface. You can change the sensitivity in here. We've got some very quick, like low, medium, high, or threshold changes, and you can see more detail on that on the videos on our site, and etc. But it can be changed in terms of its sensitivity, and there's really that's the starting point, in that when it's in its kind of preset mode, you can choose all these different scales, and you can choose different sounds. So here, try a flute. So it has some sounds built in, but also you can connect through to other things. So Jessica, are there any questions, any additional questions coming through that you've got there?
I don't see any questions about the pentatonic scales, and don't be afraid to ask them, guys. I did not know what that meant the first time I picked up a Skoog, so I think you explained it really well, though.
Yeah. And have you got any questions yourself?
Can you play drums on a Skoog?
You can, yes. Very simple. You just have to connect through to Garageband, so you just have to turn audio off, and I'll just show you very quickly. I'll open Garageband, and you can actually play any instrument in Garageband. So you can play drums, you can play piano. So here we've got a drum kit, and the thing that I need to do in the Skoog is just make sure the notes are set to hit the drums, and the way to do that is just to bring the octave down. So now, there you go, drums on a Skoog. It's that simple. So and the integration with GarageBand is super easy as well. Any other questions, or should we?
So I guess for the listeners, Ben, does the sound come out of the Skoog or does it come out of the iPad?
That's common. So the sound actually comes out of the iPad. So this really is a kind of like a sensor, an instrument that's sending data to the iPad. It's Bluetooth, so it has a range of about 10 to 15 meters, which is quite good in classroom use. We do recommend that you use an external speaker with the iPad to give you a bit more of a engaging sound. I mean, with electronic instruments, it'll only ever sound as good as the sort of speaker you're using. But iPads these days, they sound pretty good. So yeah, it comes out of the iPad.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Nothing yet, guys. Feel free to. Oh, does it work with Chromebooks?
Not at the moment, but that is something that is we're working on it. We have a beta, and that's something we're hoping to release. It won't be immediately, but we're hoping that will be coming out soon. But yes, we're working on that. So at the moment it's iOS and macOS, but we are looking to add that.
Shannon asked, how much do these cost?
Oh yes, important. So normally $200, but at the moment Accessible Tech are doing them for $190. I think Ronan might be able to put the link in the chat. I think it was at the top of the chat. So it's accessibletech.org/product/Skoog for education. And so they're doing a special on that. And with that, you get the Skoog and you get access to all of the apps. So there's this Skoog app here. There's also a sampling app for recording your own sounds. There's Skoog Access for using it in a different way as a kind of AAC app. There's lots of things that come with that. But I think that... Sorry?
No, we have Jody wants to know if you can show how to connect it to GarageBand again.
Yes. So in terms of connecting to GarageBand, on the Skoog app here, I go up to the MIDI here, and if I just turn MIDI on and I turn the audio off in my Skoog app, that's all you need to do. It is now connected to GarageBand, and I can go in here and let's get some different sounds. Let's maybe get a piano or something. Oh no, that I quite like this. Let's do Pipa. So the integration with GarageBand is pretty seamless in that sense. So should we crack on? Because I want to try and leave plenty of time for more questions and discussion. So that was the first thing, just looking at like finger painting with Skoog. So just really, using some of the preset scales and just letting kids play with the device. And we've seen that work to huge effect, particularly in kids with more sort of profound and multiple challenges, and where it's really a kind of sensory exploration. It's really great for cause and effect. It's really motivating and really great for individuals with sensory impairment, like visual impairment. So now, taking that
one thing real quick, Ben, just to kind of give an example of how easy it is. I have students who are just on like one switch cause and effect kind of goals in their schooling, and they, as soon as they heard the output of different sounds, especially like as it pertained to like different lessons, they were engaged with it. I mean, obviously their accuracy didn't allow them to play on a scale immediately, but it's extremely engaging for all students, regardless of their cognitive level.
I mean, that feeds into this next thing. So finger painting, for kids with less mobility or less, actually with the preset scales, it will produce a musical output. But if you want to then start thinking about playing a melody, like an ordered sequence, then you need maybe a bit more skill. But you'll notice the Skoog's got a different color on each side, the same as in the app for the feedback. Now in the app, we can think of this now like coloring in, sort of painting by numbers. If you remember those, where you have a book and it says, right, color 1 is blue, and you have to put blue in this block. So in the app here, we've got some built-in playing by color, painting by numbers type things. Let's do Incy Wincy Spider. So you can see here now I'm going to press and it should just play. So you can see that. So it's feeding me the color. I'm seeing a color, I'm pressing a color. It's really concrete in terms of the experience and the sensory kind of linkage in terms of cause and effect. And that's essentially painting by numbers. So it's really, really simple in that sense, as a kind of moving from just freely playing with sound to starting to structure that in some way. And it's important to know that, you know, there's quite a few songs in here. Maybe we've got something a bit more formal, like well, let's do Ode to Joy. So here you've got. There we go. Really easy. And also then online, once you've mastered the songs that are there in the color feeding, there's a huge range in the online songbook that have been transcribed and you can print out as PDFs, and they make a really great kind of accessible resource in the classroom. Any questions coming through there on that, Jessica?
Yeah, we do have one question from Peggy. She asked if there are any textures on the side for blind students.
What we have with the Skoog is underneath, there is a kind of it's like a braille marker to show, which is always under the yellow in the same place. So if you are visually impaired and you're holding it, you can feel for where this front side is. And then there aren't textural variations on the buttons themselves, because we find that the actual having a different sound or note when you press that side is a really good sensory differentiation. And also the spatial element of it, because it's actually a 3D object, it's actually really easy to navigate spatially just with your hands. We did look at some textural stuff with that for the visually impaired, and we found that if you place different textures on it, then some students would really just focus on the one texture that they enjoyed, and it kind of took away from it being played more as an instrument. But we do have people that stick, you know, different kind of textures on and do things that way. But it is really great.
Yeah, I have some students with visual impairments I work with, and they definitely benefited from the orientation piece of it and like helping them learn the spatial awareness piece of it. And I did try to put puffy paint on one of my Skoog. It didn't stay very long, but I agree with what Ben said. It definitely became more of a distraction and kind of like a STEM kind of thing, where they were just not focusing on the music piece. But the orientation, once you have it set up with the buttons where they belong, they really picked it up a lot quicker than I expected.
And one thing you can do, I don't know where I get a chance, but with one of the other Skoog apps, which lets you record sound in, for some students you can actually record in left, right, forward, back, and then they can, when they press it, it says left, it says right, it says forward, it says back, it says top, and that's a really good way of learning the orientation, if that works for some students. So moving quickly on, so we've done finger painting, we've done painting by numbers, and now I want to show you coloring in, as I call it, which is, I think, a jewel in the crown of Skoog in terms of accessibility and creativity. And this is where, so here on my app, there's a little iTunes icon. And if I touch that, I can sign into my iTunes or my Spotify. Here we go. And I've got my playlists here. And what it will do, if I go here to my playlist, and let's try, I'm going to change my instrument first. Let's do, oh, here we go. We're all good. I'm just going back to my Skoog instruments. Don't worry, be happy. It will play the track. I've done that a bit there. So what it's done there is it's automatically tuned the Skoog to work with the track. And this is like coloring in. So the artist has created the structure, and it's there playing on, and you're just there free to fill in where you want with the sounds that you want to make, but they'll work, they'll be tuned to the right key. And so it's really allowing everyone to be like an amazing jazz improv musician in reality. You know, as a musician, in terms of doing that, you would have to learn all your scales and know all this kind of stuff. Whereas using this technology, we can actually hook into the track, get the scale, set the Skoog automatic. So it doesn't need, so if a student wants to, you know, play along with James Brown or James Blunt or you know, James somebody else, or James the band, there's a band called James, isn't there? Then they can do that. So it's really, so it goes from everything from, you know, just finger painting to following, you know, color painting by numbers, to this more free coloring in, like, you know, one of those coloring in books where you get these beautiful patterns and you're free to take your pens and pencils and create something amazing. So any questions there, Jessica?
Yeah, there are. I'm going back and forth with a few people here. So Peggy, would it be one-on-one or with a class of several students? I explained to her, some students I did need to teach into it in a one-on-one basis. There were other, but there were times I used it with up to 3 kids in a group. And then Brian was wondering how to change the tune if it changes automatically. And I did not get fully answered
So,
here, but it does sync with iTunes, and I don't know.
and
Go ahead, Ben.
Spotify. So you choose the if you're playing along with a track from iTunes and Spotify, it will tune it automatically. If you want to choose different songs, so you can do that. You can choose the songs that are built in the songbook, or just choose a tuning yourself. So it won't automatically play a backing track unless you choose to play with something on iTunes and Spotify, but it will automatically tune it to them. And I think
the songbook that you have online also shows what to tune it to depending on what song you're playing.
So they're PDFs, and at the top they say set the notes to this, this, and this, and that. So let's just very quickly show you that. I think hopefully we can do that. Let's do. There's up a new. Let's try and get we've got a new page. We've got a Skoogmusic. There we go. Skoogmusic.com. Hopefully my internet will hold up for this. There we go. Go to support. Really had this link set up. There we go, support. So, there's all kinds of stuff online, videos, PDF downloads, lesson plans. And let's go to here, activities and lesson plans. Chat there. That. So here is where the songbook is. iTunes U course. Where are we? Where's my songbook? Oh, it's in the previous one. Wait a minute. There we go. Skoog songbook. So let's open one up. So there's a huge range here. AC/DC, ABBA, Beatles, George Michael. Let's try a bit of George Michael. Careless Whisper. So it tells you what key to set it to improvise, but also you get this PDF. So here at the top, you've got set the red to F4, blue to A4, and then you've got a color pattern to follow. So in the app, in terms of set those notes, if you wanted to do that, you would just go into notes and scales, go notes, and here you can just match the letter and number as it's written on the PDF. So it's really, really quite easy for doing that. Any other questions to add?
Yes, we were asked, how did you introduce the Skoog to your kids, Jessica? And I said, I began by just letting them explore the sounds, and I didn't get done sending this, but like Ben said, depending on the student, you might need to teach them directions and as far as like orientation goes. But I had other students who had certain interests, right? Like I have one kid who really likes Wheels on the Bus. So like Ben said, there's another program where you can really easily put your own sounds in, and I just recorded different parts of that song.
Should we show that? That's okay.
Wheels on the Bus. Yeah, I think that would be really cool.
Let's give it a go. So this is another app for Skoog called Scratch, and this came from from teachers essentially. We were working with. So you can find it. Oh, where is it?
Just past it. There it is. It's next to the screen.
There we go. And teachers were like, "This is great, and my students are really enjoying this, but can I put my own sounds on it?" And so it's a little app that has 4 colored tiles, which are essentially so now we have, and if I connect my Skoog, so that can be, like you say, that can be recordings, little samples of stuff. You can load things in. Connect my Skoog here. So now.
I think the MIDI still from Garageband probably.
So the sounds are a bit funny because it's fed back with the way we've got it set up for recording. But it's literally that easy. Just tap and hold, record a voice, or you can load a sound in, and then you can play those with your Skoog. And you can save these and you can share them between iPads. It's a really cool little app for doing things like that, or for doing kind of sensory stories. So that's been something that's been really successful, using animal sounds or environmental sounds, Or I think of a particular interesting thing that really amazed me was a student with autism who was quite focused on environmental sounds, particularly kind of a door latch, kind of handle, the kind of click clack of the door handle. And it was something he was doing, kind of self-stimulating with this kind of sound. It was really hard to get him to engage in the kind of group session that we're doing musically. So then next time what we did is record that sound of the handle onto the Skoog, and that brought him into the group. And then we transitioned that into more musical sounds once he was familiar with the Skoog, and then he was playing with everyone else. It was a really great way to engage him on his terms and with sounds that he, like you say, particular interest, sounds that he was focused on or enjoying or he found comforting. And then he transitioned from that to really playing instruments and engaging with the group. Are you reading a question there, Jessica?
I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Okay. So I think the key things that I hope that you can take away from this is that it's really easy to use for the students, but also for yourself in terms of setting it up and getting it working in class. You can use one-on-one or as part of a group. It's really great for sharing because it's this three-dimensional thing. It's something that more than one student can play at a time, and they often do. There's often quite a few people trying to get to it. It's good for turn taking and teaching a bit of patience and when to wait. And yeah, it comes with a sort of a range of built-in activities from the, just the playing with sound, the built-in songs, and then the link into Spotify and iTunes. But then, as we showed, you can hook it up to Garageband, and then you can take your artwork onto creating your own masterpiece. So you can record, you can create your own tracks, you can create a whole orchestra of stuff. And that's where we find a lot of band and music directors using it, maybe using it to support a student with cerebral palsy to play a violin part, or a student, as a recent student in Wisconsin who's using it as part of band, and she's also things, but the last time I heard she was using it to play flute and play the flute parts as part of the band with a combination of using the Skoog and the iPad. And she's actually in the marching band, so she has the iPad in a rucksack with a speaker, and she carries a Skoog, and she's able to march with the rest of the band and play her part, which is just really great to see it being used in such an inclusive way. So yeah, you can, if you've got any questions, you can always get hold of us through accessibletech.org or at the Skoogmusic website. And not to forget that it's available at a bit of a discount at the moment, $190 by accessible-tech.org/product/Skoog for education. Or you can just email us, info@Skoogmusic, and we can get straight back to you with any questions. And I think another thing that's really important is that it is a piece of tech or a tool that can grow with your kids. So it can be something you use very simply, for cause and effect and sensory stuff. And as students grow, as you grow in confidence, you can use it in different ways. For sensory stories, you can use it in band. You can use it to enable kids' own creative projects. You can use it. There are also, it does link into Swift Playgrounds if you want for coding and stuff, and that's another way of using it. But we have had students use it for doing Morse code as part of a history project, exploring the Second World War and looking at how Morse code was used to communicate, because you can then look at doing Morse code on the Skoog by using the sounds. There's so many different ways that you can use this and so much fun you can have. And we're always keen to share stories. So get in touch if you have any questions. And I don't know, Jessica, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, it's a really remarkable tool. I put my email a little bit up after Brian's question, just for specific questions about the AT piece. I'm happy to answer those as well, just as far as how this really is truly. It can also be utilized kind of from an assistive tech perspective. Yeah. So not only is it an amazing tool for accessing music, but there are other wonderful things you can do with it. So happy to answer those after this as well.
And also music therapists, it's really great for music therapy in terms of it's an instrument that enables individual students to really contribute melodically and lead a session and stuff. So many ways it can be used. And with the Scratch app for recording your own sounds, it really opens up a whole world of creativity with sound that is there to explore. So I think that's our 30 minutes. or just over. And there's all kinds of stuff online we've got in terms of resources to support activities. Do check out our YouTube channel if you want to have a look. There's lots of videos of different students using it in different ways, and Skoog being used in different elements of band, and just more informative kind of videos that show you how to do different kind of things. Like, so how do I, it looked easy to connect to Garageband, how do I do that? So there's little tutorial videos and other support, and also most of our webinars. I hit this previous webinars, so we have some other webinars on making music inclusive, or specifics about working with children with autism. Look, there's a whole range of stuff there. Or go to our website, and you can always get us at info@skoogmusic.com, or please do email me. I'm ben@skoogmusic.com. Maybe I should put that in the chat. And I'm going to stop the screen share now. And I'll just pop that into all panelists. So this is my email. Any question, please do get in touch. And thanks so much for joining us. Oh, and I think that needs to go to attendees. Otherwise it won't be there. ben@skoogmusic.com. Great. Thanks very much, guys. Have a great day. Jessica, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I look forward to, well, keep an eye out on the mailing list stuff. We'll be doing more of these and doing some more focused ones. I don't know, are there any final questions that we need to have a look at? Oh, there's a question there. We have seen Skoog used a lot with senior citizens and aging population. Really great for that, and that's where I think doing things with the Spotify playlists, so you can use music from different eras to which is great. Using playlists that really evoke memory and are of particular relevance to individuals, and then Skoog allows you to make that activity interactive. And when you make those, whether it's through dance, movement, singing, or playing with the tracks, you really ramp up that engagement. And that really helps extend the present moment, and we've seen some really great examples of it being used with the elderly. So that's great to hear. I look forward to hearing all about that. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I think we're good to go. Remember, you can get us by email or on the website. Jessica, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a goodbye from Scotland, and I guess it's goodbye from Denver.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.